The activity we chose from Project Wild is called Habitat Lap Sit. The main premise of this activity is interdependence within an ecosystem. This is a fabulous theme for increasing students' understanding of diversity within a culture. After doing the activity from an ecosystem perspective, we can use that ecosystem as a metaphor for culture and how each individual within the system is needed and necessary and essential for a healthy ecosystem, and likewise for a healthy and positive culture. This activity is recommended for grades 5 through 8. As you will see in the recording in the video that's coming up, it's very adaptable. It can be used for both lower levels as well as higher levels. In the video, it's adapted for higher levels, and a way to do this is to provide more in-depth discussion after the activity. As a recommendation for lower levels, we recommend it's effective for around 3rd and 4th grade level, and then instead of having participants pick their own role, pre-assigned roles will be handed out on name tags. And all these levels are, of course, just knowing your students and their awareness of vocabulary and things like that, so that the activity is effective for the level you're teaching to. Teaching for diversity includes awareness of your students' development. In task number 1 says, quote, "The teacher respects learners' differing strengths and needs and is committed to using this information to further each learner's development," unquote. The beauty of this activity, Habitat Lap Sit, is it has potential to reach various learning styles. Kinesthetic learners, as you'll see, it is a hands-on activity. And for visual learners, we recommend a few things to reach to this type of student. 1, bring supplies. All sorts of supplies. Name tags of the characters. Some sort of visual aid like a poster or a diagram on a board. And perhaps even a vocabulary handout. This sort of visual will be particularly useful for ELL students. Then there is the auditory learners. And again, you will see in the video of the activity that there are discussions before and after the activity. Not to be forgot, cooperative or social learning is very evident in this activity. It's a group activity. It encourages laughter and fun. And yeah, you will see more through the video of how fun it can be and what a great way to teach and instill the concept of interdependence, the relationship between 2 or more living things where each one benefits from the other.
The beauty of the Habitat Lap Sit is that it's an activity that can either be used as a pre-planned lesson or can be kept in your hip pocket for, say, if you were running an outdoor school and need a quick activity to fill some time. It's a fairly simple activity in that no materials are required unless you want to have name tags pre-created for the individual students. Also, it's a simulation, which means that all the students are going to be participating and they'll be able to see how their actions have effects. The other beautiful thing about this is that it can be done outdoors or indoors, though outdoors is preferable. The activity is recommended for groups of 15 or more students and for grades 5 and up, though, as Sarette mentioned, it can be adjusted to other age levels. Additionally, it's a fairly quick activity in that It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to go through the activity or a basic activity and the variations that go along with it. Prior to actually doing the activity, you may want to gather your students together to do a quick pre-discussion. This is your chance to be able to ask the students about their understanding and pre-assess what they already know. Additionally, this is a chance for you to help frame the activity both for the science concepts that you are teaching and also for how the activity could apply to human society and culture. In the course of this, you can introduce specific vocabulary depending on the age of your students, such as interdependence, food chains, diversity, biodiversity, and so on and so forth. To begin the actual activity, have your students form a circle so that they are standing shoulder to shoulder. Then what you need to do is ask the students to name the various components of an ecosystem, with the first student saying food or water, and then the next saying shelter, or the fourth saying space, etc. Either whatever they are, they should be actual components of an ecosystem that can be either living or not living, but you need to make sure that you at least have food, water, shelter, and space somewhere in the mix. Then continue around the circle until each student has called out a habitat component. So we are going to go around, and to start with, each of you should take on the name of a habitat component. So it could be alive, it could be inanimate, but for example, I'll be water. All right? Paul.
Boulder.
Boulder.
How specific can it be?
A tree. As specific as you want it to be.
There's.
Dang it!
That's what I was gonna say.
What did you say?
Nope. I'm gonna be something way cooler than that. I want to be. What did you say? I want to be a snake. I'm just standing there.
I want to be a cedar wax.
Okay.
Glacier.
Glacier.
I could be some leaf litter.
Okay.
Then I'll be a worm. Soil.
Mushroom.
Yay! Wolf. All right. Next, ask the students to turn toward their right, all at the same time, so that they are looking at the back of the head of the person next to them. Then what they should do is place one arm on the shoulder of the person in front of them. This is just for stability's sake. Then have them take one or two steps into the center of the circle so that they're standing approximately hip to hip. As you can see, it's kind of hard to determine where we're supposed to be because everything's so interdependent. But for the sake of this exercise, we're supposed to be in a circle, so let's circle up as best we can, shoulder to shoulder.
Chicken nuggets with egg.
I like it. Where's soil?
There's soil.
I'm by water. You should get on the other side.
Yeah.
I depend on.
Okay.
I don't need that.
Everybody turn to your right. So you're facing the back of somebody. Now place your arm on their shoulder.
Which one?
Scoot in so that our hips are essentially touching. Okay. Now it's time for the fun part. Ask everyone to listen carefully and explain that on the count of 3, they're going to sit down. Then count to 3. At this point, the students will slowly bend their knees so that they are sitting on the knees of the person behind them. Make sure that they keep their knees together so that they can fully take the weight of the person who is sitting upon them. Next, as the students are sitting, say food, water, shelter, space are in the proper arrangement. They're needed to have a suitable or good habitat. The term proper arrangement is represented by the student's intact lap-sit circle. At this point, the students may fall or they may remain sitting. Hopefully they'll remain sitting. You can either let them continue sitting for as long as they're comfortable, or you can go ahead and have them stand up. But this is the point where you want to discuss with the students how the necessary components of a suitable habitat fit together and what that means for wildlife and people. After you've had a chance to discuss what happened in the first round of the activity, and students have a better understanding of how food, water, and shelter and space are necessary for animal survival, as well as how the appropriate arrangement of these components create a suitable habitat, let the students try the activity again. This time, after they've gotten into the lap sitting posture, ask them to hold it. Then identify one of the students. For example, we'll use water. Say to the students, it's a drought year. The water supply is reduced and there is no more water. At this point, the student who was identified as representing water will remove him or herself from the lap sit circle. When they do this, the circle should collapse. If the circle doesn't collapse, continue removing additional components until the circle does collapse.
And on the count of 3, we're all going to sit down. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Not on the ground.
Hey, we're supporting each other. Okay, who is the worm? Can you leave the circle? No. What will happen if we leave the circle? Still go ahead and leave the circle.
Can I go leave?
So leave the boulder will hold on to me.
Okay, Joe, what are you?
I'm a mushroom.
Go ahead and leave the circle.
Wait, where am I supposed to go? Out.
Anywhere, but outside the circle.
All right. You got it, Olivia.
There are a number of variations that you can do for this particular activity, all of which allow you to discuss and illustrate other aspects of interdependence. For instance, you could give different reasons for people needing to leave the circle, such as pollution in the water supply, urban development removing space, or soil erosion affecting food. Other ways that you can vary this particular activity is to purposefully include specific animals or create ecosystem interdependencies that are based off of very specific locations. So you could do an aquatic version, you could do a desert version, or you could do the food web and habitat requirements for a bald eagle. It's really up to you and your own creativity. After the group has completed the entire activity, you'll want to bring them back together for another discussion. This is when you'll want to review what they learned and help them tie the ideas from the activity to other principles about habitats that they may have already learned. For instance, you may want to ask them questions such as, what are the 5 essential components of a habitat? Or how can the arrangement of food, water, shelter, and space affect humans and other animals? Or you might want to give them a hypothetical where you ask them what would have a greater effect on wildlife living on a farm in Iowa, a severe winter that killed many animals, or the development of part of a farm into a shopping center, and then have them explain why. The discussion period is also when you want to tie in principles of multicultural education and diversity. Kelly will explain how you can tie science and other science lessons into the principles of diversity awareness and cultural education.
Some questions that one might pose are, what do science lessons have to do with multicultural education? How can we connect science with diversity? And how do we apply this so our students can see real-life applications? In the next few slides, you'll see how our activity, the Human Lap Sit, applies to diversity. We'll use the connection between the Tate and Tate 3E model, and we will also use the interconnectedness of our world and of our ecosystems. When applying the 3 E's, esteem, empathy, and equity in a science lesson, one must present the material in a way so they are applicable in a real-life setting as well.
In order for students to continue to see the value in what they are learning, an application to real life is usually helpful, and in this case, rather simple to do. This is so we can continue to help guide our students to see the activities we are doing in the classroom and that they could really be applied to a much bigger level and even worldwide. Focusing on esteem in this activity of the human lab sit, we can identify each of the following people who represent an organism as being an integral part of the activity working properly. If everyone is cooperating and working together, the circle will succeed and the ecosystem that we created will survive all together. Everyone knowing that they are important is a valuable part of this lesson and a valuable part of each day in our classrooms. If we are able to work with our students in a way that helps each of them develop a sense of worth, then we are working in the right direction. When a student feels value in class, they are more likely to not be absent, to participate, to complete their work, and to come prepared. It is also evident in this lesson that when an organism or a person is removed, the entire ecosystem feels this impact. If you remove two, we feel it even greater. Although science isn't as content heavy with diversity as English or history, we can certainly represent it as such with our activities. Now let's focus on empathy. Using the human lab sit activity as our reference, we are able to display empathy for all individuals living and non-living in the ecosystem. If one piece of the lab sit is removed, it creates tension among the remaining organisms. Something has to take the weight of the organism that was removed. If we take out another organism, the ecosystem could collapse, or it could operate with other entities taking on more and more weight. If a third piece or person in this instance is removed, collapse is likely in this activity. We can demonstrate empathy by working to make sure that everything survives together. This is how we can operate in our world and in our classrooms as well. We can take care to help one another so we are all able to continue working in our world. I think the students remembering this activity and remembering the interconnectedness that is displayed during the activity, they will better remember the value of empathy. Equity in the human lab sit activity is displayed by each person feeling and supporting the weight of the person in front of them, and also leaning back and having their weight supported on the person behind them. Each organism in this activity takes on the weight of another while simultaneously giving some of that to the person or to the organism behind them. This system of equally sharing the burden is a compelling notion that we can encourage in our classrooms. To bring this into our classroom on another level, if one student is falling behind or isn't performing, what can we do as their teacher to help bring them up? To take this to a different level, what can our students do to help one another succeed? We are working toward an equitable environment. As an ecosystem operates, sometimes one organism will take more weight while others have a lighter load. Then, as seasons change, the load may shift. Things are not always equal all the time, but in an ecosystem and in our lives, this works. A question to pose to your students to help them understand this idea of equity could be about a friendship in their life. Sometimes their friend might need extra support if they're going through a really tough time. Likewise, when we go through a hard time, we might need extra support. In the friendship, it works because the support is there to be given or to be used. and this is an equitable system that operates well. So the questions of, can science education represent a study in diversity, and can we represent multicultural education in our science lessons, we believe are a resounding yes. We encourage you to read Chapter 6 of Multicultural Teaching, a Handbook, the 8th edition by Tate and Tate. It is a very good resource for science activities that support esteem, empathy, and equity and multicultural learning in a science classroom.
This particular activity was taken from the NEEAA's Project Wild activity book. For additional information or resources or activities, you may want to check out the links and publications below.
We'd like to leave you with the words of Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.